All right, welcome to another video, and we've got something completely different. For the first time on this channel, we are going to be checking out Train Sim World 2. And I've only just recently started playing this, but I have been through this route a few times to kind of get used to how it works and sort of learn where we need to do things, because we are going to be running no HUD, full safety systems. I like to do it as realistically as possible, but we're going to be taking the ICE, the Intercity Express 17 run from Aachen down to Köln, and I'm probably saying that completely wrong. It is all in German because this is a German train. So let's jump right in. So we will keep the HUD on just while we load the passengers. Right, so reverser to forward, we need to the pantograph up, connect the circuit, and then we can open the doors. I think that's the side that we're on. Yeah, that's right. Right, while that's happening, let's get out and turn on our safety systems. So we have SIFA, PZB, and LZB, and we'll talk about what those are and what those do as we're going. Pretty cool. The first class passengers sit right here. They can watch what you're doing, sort of. You've got such a big chair, they can't really see the controls, but anyway. Right, all that's left to do now is wait for the passengers to board, but we can set up lighting. We don't need the lights on today. We don't need full bright. Let's go AFB, and we'll put that into Freigabe, which allows us to control, basically cruise control, with this lever over here. Right, so the passengers are all boarded, so we can close up the doors. We are only due to depart at 15:42, so afternoon service, and we can see straight away that our speed restriction is 40 km an hour, which is perfect because with PZB we're limited to 45 anyway, and I believe it's mandatory to stay 5 km underneath that just to avoid any issues. Right, so we are going to be closing the doors. And we can set our AFB to 40. Right, we are good to go. So let's turn off the HUD, get the power in, and we should get cracking. So the AFB is going to hold us at 40 km an hour, which is our speed limit. And because we're not using the HUD, we're going to have to pay attention to all of the signals and all of the boards as well to make sure we're doing the right thing. Right, because these two lights are flashing, that means we are in a limited mode by PZB, so we have a maximum speed of 45 kilometers an hour. Right, so there we are, up to 40 now.
SIFA.
Okay, so that is SIFA who's shouting at us. I'm not exactly how sure, there's a specific time in between, it's probably like a minute. That little SIFA light will come on, and if you don't push the pedal, which is down here, like so, in time, it will actually stop the train. So there we have our new speed limit of 100. But we're still limited by PZB, so we'll wait for that to stop flashing, which it has. And technically you should let the entire train pass the speed limit. So probably here around this board we can go and bump the speed up to 100. Like so. So when the SIFA light lights up, we need to push the pedal. If you don't do it in time, she will start shouting SIFA at you. And I think she says it 4 times, and if you don't do it after the 4th one, it puts the brakes on for the train. So that's a safety feature. So if for whatever reason the driver falls unconscious or is incapacitated in some way, the train will automatically come to a stop. And we'll talk about the other safety systems as we go. I actually find this route one of the easier ones because you only stop right at the end of the route. So I have been looking at the Talent 2 line, which stops at a bunch of the stations along the way. And without the HUD, you kind of need to learn the route to understand which stations to stop at. Okay, so we have a flashing green light, which means we should be expecting to slow down at the next signal. We are at our speed limit, so there's no point pulling off the power just yet. So let's just keep an eye on the next signal. There's SIFA, and see that speed limit is for that track, not for us. So we'll keep an eye on the next signal and see. It is green, so there's probably a train running ahead of us, which is most likely why that happened. Right, so speed limit at this is 120. So once the train is kind of past there, we can push up, and we have another one up to 140. So we can go all the way up to 140. Let's give it a bit more power. I normally don't go all the way to the top. Right, let's go up to 140, like so. So this train can actually do 330, but the maximum we get up to on this line is 250. And that's done under a system called LZB, which we'll talk about when we get to that point. So now we're just keeping an eye on the signals and the boards to see if there's anything that we need to do. So the Talent 2 is a different train. It does a maximum of 160 k's an hour, and it's the kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, commuter service, I guess, because it stops at all, not all, but most of the stations in between. Whereas the Intercity Express, this one, only stops right at the end of the line. So it goes all the way from Aachen to Köln, and then back again all the way. It doesn't stop at the stations in between, which I think actually makes it a bit easier because we only have to worry about PZB right at the end. Actually, PZB is not really the issue. I'm sort of starting to get the hang of how it works, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But the biggest issue with the Talent 2 is knowing which stations you have to stop at and where to start braking for those stations. With this, it's fairly simple because we just stop right at the end, and the speed restrictions actually get you down fairly slow by the time you get to that destination anyway. So you have a good idea of where to stop. And because those two terminating stations are really big, it's easy to recognize when you're coming into one of the end stations. Right, so we have a fairly long cruise here at about 160 knots. Not knots. I'm so used to flying. I'm gonna do that a lot. Right, hang on. We have a yellow board here, which means we need to slow down. So down to 120. Which is about there. Now, because it's above 80 Ks, we don't need to acknowledge that with PZB. And the yellow one means there is a speed limit coming up. So that's not the actual speed limit. That just tells you you need to start slowing down. And this is probably, there's the actual speed limit there. So this is just slowing us down to go through these stations. At 120 Ks an hour. Right, we have another one, which I think slows us down to 110. So let's bring that down. 110, and we'll let the AFB sort that out for us. That yellow line, oh, the yellow is not for us. We have a green, which is perfect. That means we can continue on. So I've just started getting into learning the signals and stuff, so I don't know everything. I think I know enough. There comes our 110 limit. Perfect, we're at 110 already, no issues. So obviously if the light is green, we can go. If it's yellow, we can go, but it means we're probably gonna have to stop at the next light. So if you go, you pass the yellow, see double green, no issues. If you go past the yellow, be prepared to start or start slowing down, be prepared to stop. Then if there are any speeds, the top speed is in white, and that is the speed limit at that signal. And that's a signal speed. It's different from the line speeds, which is what we're following on those boards on the side. So the white number on top of the signal tells you the speed at that signal, and the yellow one underneath tells you the speed you need to be at when you reach the next signal. So that's kind of what I've gathered so far. PZB is a system where you have to acknowledge speed reductions as long as they're, I think it's less than 90 k's an hour, and you actually have to push a button to say that you've noticed that speed restriction, and then within 20 seconds of passing the speed restriction, but it's actually 23, you need to slow the train down to within or to below 85 k's an hour. So that's the first part of PZB. And we'll see that later on when we get closer to our destination. So now I'm just keeping an eye out for a board that allows us to speed back up to 160. There it is. So after this one, we can go up to 160. We'll give it a little bit of time because we should let the train pass by that. Now, for some reason, the AFB doesn't go above 160, which I don't know if that's how it's supposed to work, but it automatically stops at 160. I would expect, because we're not under LZB yet, I would have thought that it would let you do whatever you want. But anyway, it automatically stops at 160, won't let me go any higher. But that's okay because 160 is our limit for a bit. So now we're going to travel for a while at 160 Ks. And then once we get to LZB, or the LZB zone, I don't know if they call it a zone sector, the LZB part of the route, the train will do the speed for us. And we'll know under LZB, there's a little LZB sign on the side, not a sign, a board that we look out for. And also we'll get a horn from the train, and this will turn yellow, and we will get some sort of speed over there. And it's not too long until we should be inside that LZB area. And basically, my understanding of LZB is it does the speeds for you. That's obvious. So we don't have to worry about managing the speed. It'll automatically set, using the AFB, it'll set the train speed automatically. How it works is something to do with looking ahead, and it can see way further than we can. I think it's like 14 Ks or something, and detect red lights and speed restrictions, so that it can automatically start slowing you down and planning to have you at the correct speed at specific signals and speed restrictions. And that makes sense, because once we get up to 250 Ks an hour, I'm not going to be able to see those speed boards on the right hand side. It's just too fast. And also, you know, if we're doing 250 and you see a board that says 160 on the side, by the time you see the 160 board, it's just, you don't have enough time to slow down. So the LZB will know about that way in advance, and will start bringing the speed down to make sure that we meet that speed restriction. Right, it should, I think it's somewhere after this little green bridge where we enter the LZB zone. I've only done this route 3 or 4 times, and actually most of the drives that I've done have been in the other direction, so going from Köln to Aachen. I'm doing my best to remember where things are, so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we can do all the safety systems. You don't have to have the safety systems turned on. You can have them turned off and you don't need to worry about them, but I want to try and do it realistically. And obviously you can have the HUD which tells you your speed restriction and all of that. I want to do it realistically because that's the reason why I play some games, is to understand how, in this case, a train works and how you operate it, because I find that really interesting. So I thought we would have been under LZB by now, but obviously I'm a little bit early on that. It's just amazing how this train is so comfortably just sitting at 160. And to think this thing can go all the way up to 330. The next thing I want to work out is we have these route markers along the way, and I'm sure they must be distances. They go down in twos. And I wonder if that's 200 meters, maybe? Each one. And keeping an eye on all the signals as we go past. So you'll see once we get all the way to Köln, those route markers go all the way down to 0. So I wonder if that's telling us 432 Ks? I don't think it's that far. Oh wait, no, if it's 200 meters, it won't be kilometers. I haven't quite, I don't do maths like that. So I haven't quite worked out exactly what they're showing you in terms of distance, but they are very useful for knowing where you are on the track. So as I'm playing through these, I'm starting to make notes of the, oh, that looks like the LZB sign. There it is. Okay, so we get the beep from the train. We can set this all the way up because it's going to manage it automatically. We can go to full power because it's going to sort that out for us. And we can see it is seeing a 160 kilometer restriction, but it's over 10 Ks away. So we're going to stay at 160. And the moment it detects a speed limit increase, it'll also bump the speed up. So at some point along here, we jump up to 200 and then eventually to 250. But LZB is going to do that for us. All we need to worry about at the moment is SIFA. So every time that light comes on like that, we just hit that SIFA button to make sure that the train knows we are still alive and kicking. And I don't know the names of any of these stations. I still need to start learning that. Right, all green signals along the way, so we are good to go. I don't know what those white signals mean. I need to also figure that out. I read through a whole document on German signals. There we go, we just bumped the speed up to 200. And I don't know if there is actually a board that indicates that anywhere along here, because we're under LZB, because I've never seen a 200 board and I've never seen a 250 board. They might very well be there and I've just missed them, but I haven't actually seen them. So we'll see as we go along if we can spot a 250 board. But it could possibly be that because LZB is taking care of the speed, maybe there aren't. There's another LZB sign. I guess if you were joining from a different track, oh, there's another ice. So that's the service obviously going in the opposite direction. Oh, so we've just now increased speed to 250. I didn't see a 250 board. Okay, so that's LZB saying it's picked up. Because it's saying 0, that means it's seeing a red signal. It's over 10 Ks away, but it's seeing that there's a red signal, which means we would have to stop at that signal if it stays red by the time we get there. It's over 10 Ks away, so this reading hasn't started changing. But if it detects that we're getting close enough, and the signal's still red, LZB will slow us down automatically and even bring us to a stop just before the red signal. So if it is over 10 k's away, there's a good chance it might clear before we get there. But if there is okay, those little orange signals had an arrow pointing that way, so they are not for us. They're for that track on that side, from what I understand, which makes sense because LZB is keeping us at 250. It didn't bring us down to 120. SIFA. So the reason for a red signal would be most likely a slower train running ahead of us. And if that is the case, we will have to stop at the red signals. So basically the signals break the track up into different sections, and you can only have one train in a section at a time. So as soon as we drive past a signal that's green, it turns red. So as we go past the signal here, it would change to red. And we are now occupying this piece of track. If another train was coming along behind us, they would only be able to pass that signal we just passed once we pass this one. Then that one behind us, which is now red, we pass into the next section. The signal behind us now goes yellow, which says you can pass this one, but the next signal is red. And that's how it works, which is actually quite a cool system if you ask me. So that you only ever have one train in each section of track. So it feels like we're starting to slow down. So we've got this G light, which so that red signal is now 5.5 k's away. So this red G means LZB is going to start slowing us down, and it's automatically adjusting the AFB speed to make sure. Okay, there we go. We're speeding up again, back up to almost 250. Okay, so I think what happened there is that red light that it was seeing 5.5 k's away changed, and as that train is now moved into the next section, and it's now seeing the red signal in the next section. So that's why our speed jumped up, because we got a little bit more distance to travel before we have to stop. We're very clearly going faster than this train ahead of us, so it is likely that we are going to have to stop at one of these red lights. I haven't actually had this happen to me before, and I'm just playing one of the timetables. It's not a scenario or anything, so this will be fairly new. We are bringing the speed right down. I don't have to worry about controlling anything now that now that the distance to that red light, and we know it's a red light because it's slowing us all the way down to 0. If it was just a speed restriction, we'd see the speed restriction there. If it was 160 or 140 or whatever, that would appear over here. So we know it's red because it's taking us all the way to a full stop, and that red light has now just changed. So we're now picking up the next one 5 k's away. So there's definitely a train ahead of us going slower than we are. So we're going to keep, well, LZB is going to keep our speed down, and we're already starting to slow down now for that next signal. But because we are faster, we're eventually going to catch it, and we will eventually have to stop at a red signal most likely. Okay, our route markers are down to 194, so we're already a lot closer to the end. So I wonder if we'll actually catch up with that train and the red light. There's one of the Talent 2 trains, the commuter trains. Obviously they've stopped at this station. I wonder if we'll catch up with it before the end of the line. So we come right down to 160. We are slowing down. We're now less than 4 k's to that restriction. So now we get this little bar, and it will slowly bring right. So that signal is just updated as that train moves into the next section. Okay, once again, now 4 k's. So we're getting closer each time. Right, here we have a speed restriction, but it's for that line because it's got an arrow, so not worried about that. Each time, there, that signal's just updated again. Each time this bar gets lower before it jumps back up like that as it picks up the next signal. So we definitely are gaining on the train ahead of us. So I wonder if maybe what I should do... Oh, I can't actually set the AFB because we're in LZB. That's not a big deal. We're still moving along at a decent speed. Just updated to the next signal. It's the German countryside, I guess. This train does look really cool outside. We'll take a walk along the train once we arrive. It's a bit tough looking at the train on the outside when you're running the safety systems, because we don't want to miss something happening here, which would bring the train to a stop. That yellow light is not for our line. We've got a green up ahead. No worries. I know I push SIFA quite early a lot to just try and get it out of the way. Every time I think about it, normally every time I glance down here, I just notice the light, even if it's not on. Every time I think about SIFA, I just hit that button to make sure it keeps resetting. So you don't have to wait for the light to come on or the audible warnings. You can push that button every now and then. Each time it resets the time. Okay, we are slowing down. We have another yellow, but it's for that side, so not for us. And we're down at 150 anyway. Now it feels like we're slowing down. We might have to stop at a red. There's our yellow signal. So I didn't have to actually acknowledge that with PZB, but sometimes I just do it in case. So I don't always remember exactly which ones. But obviously, yellow, it seems like we don't have to acknowledge with PZB. But there's no penalty for acknowledging, so if you're not 100% sure, rather just do it. And if the 1000 Hertz light over here, the yellow one, doesn't come on, you didn't actually have to acknowledge it. Right, another yellow. Speed of 160, but we're not going to get that fast because we're slowing down for a red light, which is now 750 meters up ahead. So we've caught up with this train that's running ahead of us, and we are going to have to wait a bit at this red light. Right, so there it is. It is red. LZB, working magic, and gently bringing us to a stop before that red light. So probably find that, wonder if it's a talent that's running ahead of us that's now stopped at one of these stations. And it looks like I can see a talent 2 over there. We just have to watch and see, is that one actually going that way, or is it just traveling in the opposite direction? If it is going the same direction as us, which it looks like it is now, then that's the train that's holding us back. Yeah, it's definitely moving in that direction. Okay, so that's the train we're following, and obviously because the talent 2 only goes up to 160 and stops at a lot of these stations in between, it makes sense that we would catch up to him. Okay, so it's gone yellow now, which means we can proceed. What I'm actually going to do is let's turn off AFB and just kind of manually control this. And we'll keep us around 80. Otherwise, we're going to keep running into that talent. Although, let's check the next route marker, just see how far we actually are from our destination. Maybe it'll be all right to kick back into LZB and let it handle. Although, I think somewhere just after this station, the LZB zone actually ends. We'll get a horn if that is the case. LZB wants us to slow down again. So we got the flashing G. So let's... So that was LZB picking up another limit. Okay, so it is wanting us to speed up. So we can put in some power.
SIFA.
Right, this we're probably going to have to acknowledge. Yes, so it's a yellow, but we have a speed limit. Huh, didn't light up, so maybe we didn't have to acknowledge it. Oh, because we're under LZB, that's why. Right, so when we're under LZB, PZB is not enforced. So we don't need to actually acknowledge that one. But we did anyway, because it's safer to do so. Okay. That's the LZB zone ending. So now we're under control. So let's reset all of these. Okay, that's automatically switched off. That's perfect. LZB's come back on for some reason with that 70 limit. So I don't know if that was actually PZB kicking in and slowing us down, because LZB is now come back on. Right, anyway, we have a speed here, speed restriction of 60, so we need to start slowing down. Should probably acknowledge that one as well. But we are still under LZB. And I did acknowledge the previous 70 restriction anyway. Anyway, not 100% sure what happened there. Okay, LZB is now properly ended. All those lights have gone on. And this is the station coming up. So I'm going to keep us at around 50. The restriction is 60.
SIFA.
Okay, sorry if I go quiet. I'm just now concentrating because we've got PZB to worry about. And we've got speeds. I don't remember going onto this track. Right, I think we can start slowing us down. I always think that that's a speed of 100, but it's actually not. That's just one of the route markers. So I'm going to start bringing the speed down. I think we're going to go that way. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, we can start slowing us down. Now, one thing that seems to be missing from this station is these stop points. There should be little H signs to tell you where to stop the front of the train. But I haven't seen any in this station. So I generally stop at the second number, or second from the end, which is that guy there. So let's see if we can get relatively close to that. I think this was the talent that was in front of us. Because I know I did have a look and test. If you stop by this second marker, then our entire train is on the platform. And I think even a little bit before it. So where we are now should be all good. Right, so there we are. We have arrived at our destination. Let's just switch off some of these things and open up the doors for the passengers to get off. Oh, the doors are not going to open because I turned this off. I'm supposed to do that afterwards. There we go. Now the doors will open. But we can turn all of these guys off. And now we can turn the HUD back on to see our passengers getting off the train. And that brings us to the end of the ICE 17 run, and we did score a gold for that distance. So it's almost 70 Ks, just about 70 Ks, 36 minutes, 17 seconds. We did stop 120 meters past where they wanted us to stop, but that's really difficult to judge in this station without those markers. But anyway, that brings us to the end of this ICE route. I really enjoyed that. I'm definitely going to be doing more of these runs as I learn the German systems and I learn this German route. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, if you have any questions, please let me know down below, and I will see you in the next video.